It starts like a wind, soft, unsure. Clara, that's all the boy says. Just a name, but the way it floats out from his sleep, tangled in a fevered breath, hoarse from coughing, it chills the bones of everyone in the room. You sit by the hearth, nursing a weak flame against the Arizona chill. The orphanage hasn't had firewood since Tuesday. What's burning now is splintered furniture, scraps from a broken writing desk and the leg of a rocker some donor left behind. The boy, Thomas, no older than 6, lies bundled beneath the mission quilt. His cheeks are flushed, his little fists clenched in sleep, but his lips part again. Clara, don't leave me. And your heart stutters. You were only meant to be a volunteer here, a temporary presence while the matron recovered from that winter sickness. But tonight, as the wind howls and the adobe walls groan, something changes. One of the other children stirs. A girl named Eliza, barely 8, pulls the blanket tighter around her. "She's the one they buried," she whispers. You glance up. "What did you say?" Eliza doesn't answer, just rolls over, pretending she didn't speak. But it's not the first time you've heard that name. The priest mentioned it last week, offhand, when he found you cleaning out the old West Wing. Said something about Miss Clara, poor thing, no kin, no stone, just initials. And he'd said it like it was both a prayer and a warning. The older boys say her ghost walks the cloister corridor, that she appears in the bell tower at dusk, that if you listen hard enough, you can hear chalk scratching on a slate that isn't there. You didn't believe it, not until tonight. You move closer to Thomas. His breath is ragged, sweat glistening on his temple, fever's rising. You check his pulse, thready, too fast. His lips move again. She said she'd find me. His eyes open, but he doesn't see you. She never got to say goodbye. That's when you feel it. That low humming dread that lives in your chest like a memory you never had. You rise, cross the room to the cabinet where the infirmary records are stored. Dust coats every surface. The books are brittle, the ink faded, but there it is. Clara M., hired 1862, terminated 1864. Cause of termination, fire incident, moral suspicion. No follow-up, no obituary, no record of family, and below that, scribbled in unfamiliar handwriting, see also Pauper's Lot, West Grave Line. A shiver crawls up your spine. You don't know why this matters, not yet. But you know what it feels like when something's been hidden too long and suddenly the wind wants it told. Outside, the mission bell gives a dry creak. Inside, the boy's fever breaks, and he breathes easy for the first time in hours, as if someone heard him. And for the first time since arriving at the orphanage, you speak the name aloud. Clara. Just once. Quietly. But the fire flares for a moment, as if it, too, remembers her. You ride out just after sunrise. The orphanage sits behind you, washed in pale light and the smell of burnt pine. The boy's fever broke at midnight, and now he sleeps like nothing ever happened. But you can't sleep. Not after that name, not after that voice in the dark. You follow the priest's map, half-spoken, half-remembered, down past the dry riverbed and the ruins of the old mission stables, past the corn rows long since claimed by weeds, until you reach the edge of the field where the sycamore stands. It leans like a sentinel, its branches stretched out wide, bones against the morning sky. This is the pauper's lot, where the forgotten were laid, farmhands, drifters, mothers with no names and children with no kin. You dismount slowly, boots crunching on brittle grass. The fence is rotted, half sunk into the earth. No marble here, no dates. Just hand-carved wooden crosses, worn smooth by sun and wind. Some graves have initials burned into tin. Others, nothing at all. You kneel near the edge of the line, heart thudding, fingers brushing away dirt from one plate half buried in leaves. 3 letters, C.M.M. A breeze stirs, sudden and sharp. You glance at the sycamore. A crow lifts from its branch, cawing once before vanishing into the distance. Clara. You don't know her full name, but the timing fits. The name matches. The fire, the whispers, the boy's voice. You rise, pacing between the rows, eyes scanning every crude marker. Some rusted, some barely standing, but none feel like this one. This one pulls at something, and beneath the sycamore, the ground feels heavier, not just with time, but with weight. There's a tiny bundle tucked beneath a flat stone nearby. Ragdoll, mostly threadbare, left recently. Its cloth is too clean to be old. A child has been here. You carry the memory of Thomas's voice as you stand, watching the shadows move across the field. Then you see it, something glinting in the grass near the grave's edge. You step closer and find a button, delicate, pearl. Not from any man's shirt. It's carved with a tiny rose. You pocket it, and for a reason you can't name, you whisper a promise aloud. I'll find the rest of you. You don't expect an answer. But something creaks above you, the sycamore's oldest branch swaying, though the air is still. You leave the grave behind, but not the weight of it. And as you ride back toward town, you glance at the orphanage windows. The boy is standing there, staring straight at the horizon, right where you've come from, and he's holding something in his hand. It's the same button. You shouldn't be in the attic. The matron made that clear, her room, her keys, her rules. But ever since you came back from the sycamore grove, you felt something stirring, like dust shaken off memory. The boy hasn't spoken her name again. But he watches you now, like he knows you carry a story inside your chest you didn't ask for. So you wait until the children sleep and the hall is quiet, then slip the old brass key from her office drawer. It turns with a tired sigh. Inside, the attic smells of dried apples and mildew, sharp with old paper. Sunlight filters through a round window at the far end, catching particles that hang in the air like secrets. Boxes, crates, trunks with buckles rusted from time. You move carefully, hands brushing against bundles wrapped in newsprint and twine, nothing labeled. But then, beneath a faded quilt stitched with red thread, you find the writing desk. Its drawer sticks. You coax it open. Inside, a bundle of letters tied with blue ribbon, stiff with age. The wax seals are broken, but faint traces remain, pressed with a delicate rose crest. You unfold the first letter. The ink has faded, but Clara's name is there, written in a careful, upright hand. Clara M. Merriweather, Copper Ridge Estate, Arizona Territory. And at the top corner, March 1863. Your breath catches. The handwriting is elegant, precise, measured. But the words crack with loneliness. My first week has been difficult. The youngest child refuses to speak. The eldest, he watches me too closely. The master avoids my eyes. I suspect they do not want a governess, but rather a distraction or a scapegoat. You turn the page. Another letter, dated April. There's a locked room I'm told not to enter, but I've heard laughter there, soft and strange, as though someone is remembering how to be a child again. Then another, written on thinner paper. Today I gave one of them a ribbon. She smiled. I thought perhaps I had imagined it. You read 5 letters before the final one falls into your lap, darker ink, blotched as if written in haste. If anything should happen to me, let it be known. I never meant harm. I only tried to protect them. I heard footsteps that night. I know whose they were, but I have no proof, just fear. Tell whoever finds this, don't forget me. There's no signature, just a pressed flower, dry and pale blue, caught between the folds. You close the letters gently. The ribbon shakes in your hand. A sound behind you makes you spin. Just the floorboard settling, or so you tell yourself. But when you exit the attic, you find something new, a book left open on your cot. You didn't leave it that way. It's a children's reader, page marked with a feather. And in small penciled print on the margin of the page, it reads, "She read this to me once. I think she cried after." You stare at the words, because you've seen this handwriting before. It's Thomas's. But Thomas can't write. Not like this, not in Clara's style. You arrive in Copper Ridge under a veil of dust and expectation. The year is 1862. The war has taken so many men eastward that the Arizona frontier feels like a place the world forgot, which perhaps is why you came. The train hisses behind you, leaving you on a cracked platform flanked by wild mesquite and sun-baked cattle fencing. You stand alone in a high-collared traveling dress, gloves buttoned at the wrist, a battered valise in hand. You are Clara Merriweather, 25, daughter of a failed preacher, fluent in French, excellent with children according to the forged recommendation tucked into your skirt pocket. No one here knows who you were, and no one asks. The man who collects you from the station does not speak during the ride, not until the house appears on the hill, 3 stories, flanked by wild roses and something darker in the architecture. Spanish bones, you'd guess. A hacienda once turned Anglo estate. You're not to speak to the children unless spoken to, the driver says flatly, and you're to eat alone in the east pantry. You nod. Inside, the house smells of ink and lemon oil, polished floors, quiet halls. The master greets you only briefly. "I'm Samuel Whitlock," he says, extending a hand he does not expect you to take. "My wife died last winter. The children require supervision." His eyes are not cruel, but they are tired, fixed on something that isn't there. You're shown to your room, small, clean window facing the old orchard, a desk, a pitcher, no lock on the inside of the door. That first week, the children test you. The youngest, Elsie, refuses to eat unless you hum. The eldest, Matthew, ignores you entirely until you catch him watching you from the hallway mirror. It's the middle child, Thomas, who speaks first. He calls you Miss and hands you a pine cone like it's a peace offering. You thank him. He stares for a long time. "Don't go in the red hallway," he says quietly. You nod. "Why not?" He shrugs. "Because sometimes the rooms breathe. The staff avoids your eyes." The cook leaves plates on the sideboard and vanishes. The housekeeper limps from a hip injury no one mentions. At night, the wind pushes against your window. But it's not wind that unsettles you. It's the music, faint, lilting, broken like a song remembered underwater. It comes from the wing Samuel said was closed for repairs. One night you light a candle and step into the corridor. The walls here are colder, the carpet thinner, the doors all shut. You pause before one, mahogany, carved with vines. Behind it the music fades. You raise your hand to knock, but something stops you. A presence, not heavy, but watching. You whisper her name for the first time. Clara, as if reminding yourself who you are, and then a voice answers from behind the door. No one says that name here. You stumble back. But when you turn, there's no one behind you, just a shadow slipping down the stairs, and on your pillow the next morning you find a drawing, a child's sketch of a woman in a long dress, standing in front of a burning house. By the third week, the sound returns every night. It begins just after midnight, slow piano keys drifting from the upper corridor. No one dares enter. You lie awake, pulse heavy in your throat, candle stub burning low. The estate sleeps or pretends to, and still each night the same notes echo, like water dripping from stone. You are not a woman prone to imagination, but the melody is always the same, not something random, something learned, practiced. And it isn't a music box. The tempo shifts. The hesitation in the middle measures speaks of flesh and fingers, of memory. One morning you confront Samuel. You find him on the veranda, whiskey in his tea and smoke curling from a hand-rolled cigar. "I heard the piano again last night," you say carefully. He doesn't look up. "You must have been dreaming." "I wasn't." He sips, staring out over the orchard. "That room has been locked since Abigail died." You blink. "I thought your wife's name was Margaret." His eyes finally meet yours. Something flickers there, not anger, something close to grief. "Abigail was my sister." You wait. But he says no more. That evening, you notice a smear on the hallway floor. Small footprints. Dirt tracked across the polished wood. They lead toward the forbidden wing. You follow, slowly. Your shoes are soft. You carry no candle, just your breath. And the old brass key you stole from the laundry room. At the end of the corridor, the mahogany door waits. The lock clicks louder than you expected. Inside, dust veils everything, but the shape of the room emerges. A child's bed with iron posts, a piano in the corner, keys exposed, a dresser covered in lace, and someone. A boy, no older than 10. He turns when you enter, his face pale, clothes too fine for a servant, his eyes unmistakable. They're the same shade as Thomas's, exactly. You blink. He's gone. No footsteps, no breath, just an empty stool by the piano, and on the sheet music, 3 letters in a child's hand. CMM. You retreat fast, heart pounding, legs shaking. Back in your room, you lock the door, but something new waits on your desk, a folded page, torn from a journal. She wasn't supposed to find out, but I think she knows now. I hope she runs before they blame her like they did last time. No signature, but a pressed flower lies beside it, pale blue, the same as in the letter. And somewhere beyond your door, the piano plays one note, once, sharp, final. The fire began on a Thursday. Dry wind clawed through Copper Ridge that week. Dust in the pantry, static in your skirts. Everything felt ready to spark. You remember the way the sky looked, bruised around the edges, the scent of creosote and ash before a single flame caught. You were with Thomas in the schoolroom, practicing letters. He'd written your name in careful lines across the slate. Clara, Clara, Clara. Then came the shout, then smoke, then chaos. The red hallway was already filling with heat when you got there. A curtain flared. A wooden beam cracked. You grabbed Elsie first. She'd frozen on the landing. Eyes wide with something that wasn't fear. It was recognition. And that should have warned you. You got all 3 children out, coughing, crying, but safe. And that was when Samuel grabbed your arm. His eyes weren't grieving. They were calculating. She was in there. You knew not to go in. I didn't. You lit it, didn't you? No. You couldn't stand the silence anymore. You shook your head. But it didn't matter. The staff said you had been distracted lately, that you asked about rooms you weren't meant to enter, that they'd seen you with candles. Whispers turned to statements. Samuel never asked if it was true, only demanded you leave. "I'll spare you the gallows," he said, "but you leave tonight." No trial, no defense, just a bundle of belongings shoved into your hands. Thomas cried. Elsie clung to your skirts, but it was Matthew who stood silently and did not speak, not until you were at the gate. Then he whispered, "I saw her." You stopped. "What?" "I saw the woman with the red shawl. In the hallway. She had the candle." You turned, hope rising like smoke. "Tell your father." He shook his head. "He won't believe me." Then, more softly, "He doesn't want to." Behind him, Samuel's figure loomed in the doorway. You knew then. He needed someone to blame, and you were the perfect shape for guilt. As you crossed the orchard's edge, wind tugged at your bonnet. You didn't cry, not even when you reached the train tracks, boots slick with ash. But you kept that drawing, the one Matthew left under your pillow, the one with the fire, and the woman in the shawl, because you remembered something too. Abigail had owned a red shawl, and she'd died in that wing. But what no one ever asked was why she'd been locked in to begin with. You wait until the moon crests the edge of the Whitlock orchard. By then the wind has shifted, heavy with ash and memory, the kind of wind that pushes people to do what they never imagined. Samuel's men said you had until dawn, but the way they looked at you, like they were deciding where you'd be buried, you knew better. So you don't wait. You gather what you can, a comb, 2 coins, the locket your mother gave you before fever took her, and Thomas. Because when you pass the nursery, he's already waiting, fully dressed, eyes wide. His small hand grips yours without a word. "Does he know, sir?" you ask. Thomas shakes his head. He's asleep. You doubt that, but there's no time for truth. You slip through the pantry, past the cold stove. Outside the sky is cloudless, cruel in its indifference. The station is 4 miles. You walk. Thomas doesn't complain once. Even when his boots blister, even when the moon disappears behind the hills, you carry him the last mile. There is no one at the depot, just a lantern left burning, and the sound of distant wheels. You hide behind a crate marked Soap Savannah. Wait. Count breaths. When the freight train slows, you lift Thomas into the open car, then climb in after. The car smells of hay and iron. Mice dart across shadows. You hold him close, listen to his breath even out, and then you cry, quiet. Not because you're afraid, but because you've crossed a line. There's no going back now. You're no longer Clara the governess. You are Clara the fugitive, with a boy who is not yours, and a truth that no one else wanted to hear. You wrap your shawl tighter, feel the locket press against your skin. It contains no photo, just a note you wrote yourself years ago. When no one comes, become the one. The train lurches forward. Thomas stirs. Whispers something against your sleeve. You bend down. What did you say? He opens one eye. Will you still read to me? You nod, even though the only book you carry is memory. So you begin. Soft over the rumble of the rails. Once in a house where music lived, there was a woman who listened too well, and the train carries you into the dark, away from fire, blame, and the name no one dared to say. Clara, the woman they tried to erase. The estate doesn't burn down. That would have been too clean. Instead, it rots. Months pass, then years. The Whitlock name, once printed in gold on church ledgers and land contracts, begins to fade. The bank reclaims the west fields. Cattle die during a hard frost. The servants leave quietly, one by one. Samuel sells the grand piano, then the carriage horses, then the chandelier his wife once polished every Sunday before guests arrived. None of it helps. People stop visiting. Even the preacher avoids eye contact when they pass in town. No one says Clara's name, but everyone remembers. They remember the fire, the scandal, the boy she stole. They whisper, not out of hatred, out of fear, because the truth, once spoken, might drag them all down. Elsie is sent to a boarding school back east. Samuel never visits. Matthew turns cruel, then quiet. At 16, he runs away to New Mexico. Only Samuel remains. In the parlor, with half-drawn curtains and his sister's red shawl still folded neatly on the settee, he never remarries, never repairs the wing. When he dies, they find a drawer full of unsent letters, all addressed to the same name, Clara M. Merriweather. Each one begins differently. I was wrong. I didn't know how to protect you. He wasn't mine, was he? But none are signed, and none ever made it past the gate. They bury him next to his sister, as if proximity might forgive something silence could not. The townsfolk speak kindly at the funeral. Tragic man, someone says, lost everything after the fire. Wasn't his fault, another adds. That woman had no place here to begin with. No one notices the boy watching from the hill. He doesn't speak, just holds a button in his hand. Pearl, with a carved rose. And later that night, in the orphanage by the old mission, he whispers to no one. He wanted to forget her. But the wind never did. You find her by accident. A trip to town, a rusted horseshoe, a turned ankle, and suddenly you're on the porch of a weathered blue house with faded curtains and lavender in the window sills. Mrs. Nora Bellamy, widow, former midwife, old as the floorboards and twice as stubborn. She offers you tea before you ask, pours it with trembling hands but steady eyes. I know why you came, she says. You freeze. I didn't say. She waves it off. You smell of dust and guilt, same way Clara did. The cup clinks against its saucer. She came here 1 week after the fire, barefoot, hair chopped, holding that boy like he was all that kept her breathing. You grip the table's edge. She was alive. Mrs. Bellamy nods. She wouldn't stay. Just asked for milk and a quiet place to rest till sundown. I gave her the back room. You close your eyes. Did she say where she'd go? No, but she left something. From beneath a floorboard, the widow pulls a tin box, wrapped in oilcloth, tied with twine. Inside a child's mitten, a letter, and a small broken music charm. When you turn the crank, it plays 3 soft notes, the beginning of the melody you heard in the house. You unfold the letter. If they come for me again, let them. But not for him, not for Thomas. He was mine long before they noticed. I kept his silence and his laughter. I held his name even when they tried to take mine. Tell whoever finds this I didn't burn the house. I saved what mattered. There's no signature, just a hand-drawn feather in the corner. The same mark from the book in the orphanage. The same feather Thomas left between the pages. You look up. Mrs. Bellamy is crying. She came back once more, she whispers. Winter of '66. Just long enough to place something under the chapel floor. You rise. Because you already know what's beneath that chapel. and the next time the boy says her name in his sleep, you'll know exactly where to go. There's a light slanting across his face as you enter the dormitory late afternoon, dust catching gold. Thomas is sitting by the window sketching something with the stub of a pencil. He doesn't notice you at first, so you watch. The way his brow furrows in concentration, the delicate grip he holds, not like a child, like someone remembering how to hold what they've already lost. You step closer. What are you drawing? He turns. As slowly holds up the paper a woman's face, soft features, slight smile. Hair pulled into a loose twist at the nape. But it's the eyes. You've seen them before. In the locket, in the mirror, in the oil painting buried beneath a velvet sheet in the Whitlock attic, the one no one mentioned, but you uncovered anyway. You sit beside him, gently. Who is she? I don't know. But you draw her often? He nods. She's in my dreams. She always hums the same song. He begins to hum and your chest tightens. It's the same melody, the same 3 notes from the charm. You reach into your coat and unfold the letter from Mrs. Bellamy's box. Let him read the first lines. He doesn't speak, just touches the feather drawn at the bottom. My mother used to draw feathers, he says softly. She said birds never forget the wind. Your breath catches. Who told you that? He shrugs. I don't know. Maybe no one, but you know better, because some things are passed not by voice, but by blood. You reach into your satchel and pull out the old photograph, the one the priest found tucked behind a warped floorboard weeks ago. Clara, holding an infant, not smiling, just looking directly at the lens, like she was daring time to erase her. Thomas touches the image. That's her. How can you be sure? I don't remember her voice, but I remember her eyes. You look at him then, not as an orphan, not as a ward, but as the echo of a woman who never got to finish her song. And in the fading light of that afternoon, you finally whisper, "She was your mother." He blinks once, then nods, not surprised, only sad, as if he already knew and had been waiting for someone brave enough to say it. The chapel hasn't been used in years. The altar leans slightly. The pews are warped with damp. A wasp nest curls beneath the bell pull, but the boy stands in the aisle like he's been here before. I think it's here, he says quietly. You nod, your breath held. You found the loose plank 3 days ago beneath the 3rd pew from the front, right side. A spot once used for storing communion wine. The smell of beeswax still lingers faintly. This time you come prepared. Small crowbar, lantern, cloth gloves. The board groans, then gives. Beneath it, a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Sealed with tar, no insects, no rot, just time. You unwrap it carefully, layer by layer. Inside, a small wool blanket, once white, now the color of earth. A silver pin engraved with the letter T, and a diary, its leather cover cracked, the binding stitched by hand. You open it slowly. First page, property of Clara M. Merriweather, do not open unless you already know. You do. The entries begin softly. Notes on the children, sketches of lesson plans, dreams of going east once she'd earned enough. Then come the entries about Samuel, about the night in the orchard, how he kissed her hand, then her neck, how she pulled away, how he apologized, how he stopped speaking to her after, until the night he didn't. The page tears slightly where her pen pressed too hard. I said no. He said no one would believe me. He said the house needed quiet again. Your hands shake. Thomas leans closer, eyes wide. You turn pages, the pregnancy, the denial, the midwife hidden behind church curtains, the birth at dawn in the chapel vestry. I named him Thomas, after no one, because I wanted him to belong to himself. Then he took him from me, said no one would let a woman like me keep a child with his name in it. And then, if I cannot protect him, I will bury this truth so deep the church itself forgets. But I will leave a piece, and one day he will know. You look at the boy. He is silent, but not empty. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out the button with the rose. I kept it because it felt like mine. And now you understand why. Because it is. Because everything they tried to bury just breathed again. You hear the bell first, not the chapel's, it's rusted into silence, but the iron bell above the orphanage gate. A traveler. You're on the porch when he approaches, dressed in trail dust, face leathered by sun and silence. Early 30s, maybe. He walks with purpose, but his eyes flicker, like someone looking for a face he's never seen, but already knows. Can I help you? You ask. He removes his hat. I'm looking for someone named Clara Merriweather. The words land like thunder on dry soil. You step down slowly. She's not here. His jaw tightens. Is she dead? You nod. But something in your tone stops him from looking away. I think she was my mother, he says. You study him. The cheekbones, the set of the jaw. Then he opens his palm. In it, Clara's ring, worn silver, a tiny etching inside. CM to T, always. You reach for the diary, the one with the pressed blue flower now brittle as memory. Where did you get that? He swallows. A woman in Prescott raised me, said I was left with a name and a ring. She died last winter, told me to come here. Your name? Thomas Merriweather. Behind you in the hallway, a boy stirs. The younger Thomas. He steps forward, the two lock eyes, and something ancient moves between them. Recognition not of memory, but of marrow. One raised in silence, one raised in absence. Brothers, though neither said the word. Not yet. The elder Thomas kneels, opens his satchel. There's more, he says. Letters. One has her handwriting, another has a sketch of this place. You kneel too, lay the diary between them, and for a long moment no one speaks, because the silence finally feels full, not with loss, but with return. The letter arrives in a lawyer's pouch, tied with red string, sealed with a wax stamp that hasn't been used since 1870. The estate of Marshal Edward Black, former legal advisor to Samuel Whitlock. You break the seal with trembling fingers. The parchment is yellowed, but the ink flows clear. A confession. You read it aloud to the assembled room. Two Thomases, the matron, the priest. Even the cook stands in the doorway, weeping silently into her apron. I write this knowing I will not see another spring. I was there the night the fire started. Abigail had returned, threatening to reveal what Samuel did to the governess. She was alive, not mad, not ill, just silenced. Clara tried to protect her. Samuel locked Abigail in the piano room that night, said it was for her own good, but she'd found Clara's letters. She knew everything. The fire was meant to erase her. Clara intervened, got the children out, took the blame. I helped him cover it up. I wanted no scandal, no ruin. I justified it to myself for decades. But in the end, it was Clara who showed the truest strength. I ask whoever reads this to do what the living could not, clear her name. You lower the letter. Silence follows. Then the priest speaks. In the name of this mission, I will write a formal record, have her grave re-registered, properly. The elder Thomas places Clara's ring on the table. "I'll fund a headstone, so," he says, "with her full name. And the feather," the younger adds. You look to the matron. "She should be moved," you say, "to the chapel grounds, with honor." The matron nods, blinking back tears. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it arrives in folded parchment, in breath returned to stories once silenced. And across the room the fire crackles, warm, not devouring, like something that remembers and forgives. They come at dusk, not many, just enough. The widow Bellamy walks with the priest. A line of children follow, carrying wild flowers and handfuls of quartz pulled from the river bank. You stand by the chapel, heart heavy but steady. At your feet a new stone, polished, pale gray. Clara Merriweather, mother, teacher, protector. She kept the fire from taking everything. Below the inscription carved by hand, a single feather. The boy places the ring inside the earth before they lower the box. Her remains moved from the pauper's grave under the sycamore. No longer anonymous, no longer forgotten. The elder Thomas reads a passage from her diary. Not the tragic part, the soft part. "I once believed that silence was safety, but love taught me that to be known, even briefly, is worth any ruin." A hush follows, not of fear but reverence. Elsie came, grown now, in from the coast. She touches the stone with trembling fingers, leaves behind a child's sketch, carefully preserved, a drawing Clara once praised. Even Matthew returns, stands in the back, hat in hand, eyes full of what might be remorse. He says nothing, but stays until the last shovel of earth is packed. The children sing, not a hymn, a tune Thomas remembered from his dreams, the same melody Clara once hummed to calm them. As the sun slips below the ridge, you feel something shift, not wind, presence, like a soul exhaling. And for the first time in half a lifetime, the town speaks her name without shame. Clara, teacher, mother, truth. Night falls soft as linen. You sit by Thomas's bed, lantern turned low. He's been quiet since the burial, thoughtful in a way only children touched by deep truths become. The chapel bell rang once as the stars emerged, just enough to mark the end of something. Now, in the hush that follows, he stirs beneath the quilt, breathes deeply, smiles, and with a voice unburdened by fever or memory, he whispers, "Clara." Just her name, not as a question, but like a song finishing its last note. You watch his chest rise and fall, steady, unafraid, and in the silence something lifts from the room, like dust stirred by memory. A feather falls from the shelf above, caught by no wind you can feel. You pick it up, place it beside his pillow. Outside the wind rustles through cottonwoods. It carries no chill tonight, only warmth, and a sound, almost like humming. Somewhere she is heard. Somewhere she is whole. You turn down the lantern, whisper, "Rest easy now." And the night, quiet, kind, whispers back,